Josh Floyd. I'm one of the attorneys here at Jimenez Floyd Family Law Firm.
And my name is Christina Jimenez.
We're both board certified family law attorneys here in the state of Texas. We have offices in a bunch of locations, don't we?
We do, yeah. You forgot them all. That's
I
why
did.
you're tossing it over to me.
Hand this baton over.
We have offices in West Texas area, Odessa. We have one in Midland. We have offices in the DFW Metroplex. So we have one in Flower Mound, in Louisville, in Dallas, and then also in Tarrant County. And so if you guys ever need any assistance in any of those locations, please reach out to us.
Bedford specifically, since you forgot that.
I did forget that. It was in Tarrant County. But
it's our newest office.
Oh, very good. So today we're going to talk about something that's been pretty prevalent in social media here in recent days. And that is this whole Coldplay controversy, which went absolutely viral.
That's been fun to watch.
It's so bad. But for those of you who don't know, there was a so he's a CEO of, what is the company?
I don't know. We probably shouldn't even say it.
Okay,
right? Just
so
the CEO of a big company.
And he was at a Coldplay concert, and they do the Kiss Cams and things. And so Chris Martin announces, like, hey, we're gonna say hello to people in the audience.
Yeah. Oh, look at these two. Either they're having an affair or they're just very shy.
And they immediately, it's extremely awkward because he ducks down like away from the camera, and the girl, I think she turns and she like hit her face or something, right? And there's another friend there that's just there looking at the camera, cracking up, laughing. And because, it was such an awkward moment, one of the, some girl that had attended the concert decided that she was going to post it on social media. And didn't Chris Martin say something like...
I think he said something like either they're
very shy
or having an affair or something like that. Yeah.
Yes. And so then it goes viral, and then it comes out that he is a CEO, and then the lady who he was with was actually someone who worked for their HR department, like VP of something or other. And so obviously things have not been playing out very well for them in media. And it's my understanding that they were both married, and that he and his wife are now separated and probably looking at maybe going through a divorce. Who knows at this point? And so we thought we'd kind of talk about it, like, if this happens, what impact would it have, assuming that these parties were in Texas and this had all gone down in Texas. And so
it's a great opportunity to discuss adultery.
It is.
Right? And it's not ever a good idea.
And so I don't know, you may not have seen this, but I saw it. There was another clip of somebody else who happened to be at the concert filming something, and it actually shows these two kissing, and you can barely tell that it's them, but it definitely looks like them. And so that was a subsequent post that came out, like, hey, I'm pretty sure that these are the two people. They're standing in the same general area, etc. And so I don't know that one's kind of made all the headlines, but like, how does adultery play out? What's going to happen, or what would happen if they were here?
So let's start with what is adultery, right? And so, although it's not defined in the Texas Family Code, right? Let me back up a little bit. So adultery in Texas, we have fault-based and non-fault-based grounds for divorce, but adultery is one of the fault-based grounds. And so in the Family Code, it states that you can be divorced based on adultery, right? But it doesn't clearly define what adultery is. And so we go to the case law that defines basically what adultery is. And they found that it's voluntary, like, sexual intercourse between a man that's married, basically, right? So that is adultery. It's intriguing that it says sexual intercourse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's no video of them having sex to our knowledge, right?
It's probably good.
Yeah. Would be more problems if that was at the Coldplay concert.
Exactly.
So would this qualify as adultery?
I mean, I think potentially, right? And so when you kind of read through the case law, it does say that direct evidence isn't required. Circumstantial evidence would be sufficient. But, in this particular case, it wouldn't shock me if, husband and mistress say, like, oh no, this was the first time occurrence. This was the only time it ever happened. This was, we just held each other and we just kissed a couple times, but it didn't actually go to, sexual intercourse. um when you find yourself in these situations, you do have to do more of a deep dive into the evidence to try to substantiate that perhaps there was an affair that actually occurred. Okay, and so
Also, I think there's a difference between an affair and
mhm.
adultery,
Thank you.
right?
Yes. Okay. So
So
clearly it was an affair.
this was an affair,
Yes.
right? But was it sufficient for a fault-based ground on adultery?
So that's where the deep dive would have to come in, right? And so one of the tools that we use a lot is a process called discovery. And so during discovery, we can request credit card statements, bank statements, cell phone records, text messages, Facebook messages, Instagram messages, DMs, what else? I mean, anything.
Anything. Yeah, you said video messages, photos, bank statements are really good for proving affairs and/or adultery.
In this particular case, we might want to attempt to get access to his business credit card statements, because if they were doing this under the guise of a business trip, right? How many business trips has he gone on with this particular individual?
The hotel rewards numbers, so we can track confirmations and things like that, see what hotels he's been staying in and when.
Right. And so first you kind of have to go through and collect all of this data. And there's various methods, and it depends on if you're requesting them from a third party, if you're requesting it from an opposing party. There's all sorts of different things that we could deep dive into that we're not going to do today. But I think that's where I would want to start is, okay, do we have hotel receipts, right? Do we have even tracking locations? Sometimes you can go back and look at Life 360 or look at somebody's vehicle to see where they've been. Now, we've actually had this happen before where both of the people that had been cheated on, so the faithful spouses, the husband came and hired us and the wife came and hired us. And so that was interesting and fun, actually, because we were using both of them to kind of corroborate all the evidence to put it together to see, like, okay, well, when we're looking at the tracking devices, the Life 360 that y'all both had at the time, and it was all legal, so everybody was happy and good. They were both in the same location at the same time. And so, or they both would send messages saying that they had to go to Mexico out of town for a work trip, but it was the same weekend, same location, staying at the same resort. So maybe husband and wife in this particular case could team up and try to corroborate that evidence.
Yeah, so I think later on here we're going to do a deep dive into the evidentiary issues related.
Are you trying to get me back on track?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's just like pulling
I get excited about discovery.
Discovery's terrible. I don't know why, but yeah. So we're going to deep dive into the admissibility of all this stuff and how we could potentially prove it or not prove it or whatever. But first is, what does it matter, right? The fault-based ground, doesn't matter whether it's pre or post separation. In this case, I believe it was pre-separation, right? Because unfortunately, this poor spouse found out about it via social media. So if you're having an affair, don't let your wife find out like that. That's just rude. Right? Well, an affair is rude in general. Okay, let's go there. So pre and post separation, doesn't matter if this happened and they were already separated.
So I would say no. And I've actually tried this issue, and there's lots of case law, but we had this issue come up in one of our cases where the parties had been separated for quite some time, and we actually had a recording, and the husband was the one who had the affair, and we had a recording where the wife had said, "I'm finished with you, I want a divorce, I want nothing to do with you," etc. And then 3 or 4 months pass, and then husband is seeing someone else, and he gets literally caught red-handed with this other person, and they file a divorce and they claim fault grounds. And in that particular instance, we argued that this wasn't the cause of the divorce. Like, the divorce had already, it was in process. They were already, separated. She had already indicated that she was filing for divorce. And so, yes, did he have an affair? Yes. but could the adultery or the affair be used as a way to get more out of the divorce? In that particular case, the court said no, because it was clear that they had already been separated.
Yeah, so in order for it to be a fault based, which is kind of where you get the benefit on the property division side of it, right? You would have to prove that that was the basis for the breakup, the separation, the breakup of the marriage, right? And so, yeah, like I said, the argument, if it's post separation, unless maybe they're trying to reconcile, there's talk about reconciliation, and then you go out and commit adultery, then maybe you can say that was the cause of it, right? But I think that would generally post separation. I don't think it's going to be a fault based ground.
I agree. Now, best rule is even if you guys are separated, do your best to not get involved with someone else until the divorce is granted. Because this was this particular case with this particular judge, right? I do think that there could be another court, another judge somewhere that would say, I don't care if they were separated. He hadn't filed, she hadn't filed. And maybe that was just a really bad argument. And so I am going to found that it was fault based, right? So you do have to be very careful. So best rule is don't start seeing anybody until the divorce is 100% complete.
Yeah, because even if they had filed, right? So in Texas, you're married until you're divorced, right? There's no such thing as a legal separation. I've heard that term. I don't know if there are states that do that. Oh, it's like a legal separation. I don't know, but I've had clients call and ask about doing those. But in Texas, there is no such thing, right? You're married until you're divorced, and so if you have intercourse with somebody outside of the marriage, even if you're separated, it's still technically adultery until you're divorced. So.
And it can be used against you. So just be very, very careful about making that decision.
Okay, so now I guess let's go into what you already jumped into, right? Is the evidence portion.
I mean, this is, can you use the kiss cam as evidence? That's not talking about how to substantiate whether or not they actually had sexual intercourse.
Well, that naturally flows to, okay, if we can't use this, then what the heck are we going to use? And then we can talk about discovery and things of that nature. So what we're going to do is just draw an arrow back to that segment instead of repeating.
We'll rewind. Okay. So the next question is how are we going to get this kiss cam into evidence? And so it gets a little bit tricky. You would think that it would be easy because like everybody in the world has seen it at this point, right? But unfortunately, there's a difference between, having access to it and actually making it admissible. And so in the state of Texas, we have to follow the Texas rules of evidence. And as it pertains to recordings, there's certain things that we have to prove. And so...
Yeah, so the most difficult one in this case, I mean, there's relevance and all that stuff, but the most difficult one in this case, I mean, it's clearly relevant, but would be the authenticity, right? Is this video that I'm showing in court, does it accurately depict the actual video that was taken and accurately depict what was going on at that time? The only way to do that is to have the person that actually recorded the video, right? And so I think in this case, she's come out on social media, she's identified herself, we can track her down, right? But then after we track her down, what do we have to do then?
So we'd have to do a deposition, and we'd either have to go to the city where she resides, or we could do a video deposition. There's certain notices and things that we have to provide. But during that deposition, we would have to ask her for the original recording. We'd have to ask her certain questions about, do you know how to operate the recording? Have you made any alterations or edits to this recording? What does it depict, etc. And then it's literally will probably be about a 5-minute deposition, but we'd have to go through that process to be able to get it authenticated, so that we could subsequently use it in trial. And so
what if she doesn't have the original recording? What if she sold that for $3.7 million on eBay?
I don't think, does it matter? Do you think it matters?
So for authenticity purposes, I don't think so. But what about maybe the best evidence, right? The best evidence, it wouldn't be a copy of the video, it would be the original. But if she's like, I guess, a records custodian, then she could testify that it accurately depicts the original.
Yeah, I think that it wouldn't matter, honestly, but that would have to be something that we'd research. And if I were opposing counsel, I would definitely be making that argument.
And so if you represent this guy.
And then so after we do that, and then there was the comment that Chris Martin says, like, either these two are really shy or they're having an affair. And so then the question becomes, is that hearsay and is that admissible, as part of the video, and should that be redacted? I don't know. It's not.
If you're offering it to prove that they were having an affair, but you're really not, what would be the purpose of even having that statement?
I don't know.
I would just say mute it, play it.
Exactly. Because it speaks for itself. So, but I don't know that it may be present sense impression. That could potentially be, I mean, it's not necessarily describing the acts, maybe an excited utterance of some sort. Or maybe you just argue that it's not being offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted.
Well, then what's the relevance?
Just, so that the court can hear the video. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I guess you would just mute it and just let the video speak for itself. And that's assuming that the other side even objects to the hearsay. Who knows if they would or if they wouldn't. And so what else? Anything else on the video? I think that was it.
Yeah, well, so if you get a portion of the video, right, you just get that portion because there's a long video, right? There's a bunch of people on the Kiss Cam, right? And so if you just take that portion of the video, do you have to have the entire video to make that portion admissible?
Yes.
So you'd have to get all of it, and potentially all the Kiss Cam video be played in court, or at least the other side would have the option of playing all if they want. Yeah, so you just have to hope that video is still there.
Yeah. So, and then, the issue is, do you actually need it? Right? I mean, obviously it's probative and it's helpful. And I think, my preference is always to have videos or pictures or recordings because it's one thing to actually see it or to show it to the court as opposed to them just hearing about it. Right. But, you would also have the ability to cross-examine and depose both the husband and the mistress and then the friend that was there also. Right. And so am I going off course again? No, I'm going to go. I think I should be able to talk about this. I'm going to do it now. I don't care if it's not part of your time.
Well, but I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So let's say that, because I was thinking about you only have a portion of the video, right? You pull this video off of YouTube that the original videographer posted. It's only a segment. If she doesn't have the original any longer, can you get it in if you don't have the entire video?
I don't think so because I don't think that she can testify that it hasn't been altered in any way.
So if all we have available is what's been posted on social media, no bueno.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would be an issue. But again, the question is, do you need it, right? Because if you're doing depositions or you're doing cross-examinations, you can cross-examine the husband and the mistress and the friend. You could even depose the person who took the video. You could depose Chris Martin and say, Chris Martin, what did you see on your Kiss Cam? Right?
That'd be cool.
That would be very cool. I'm going to depose him.
I need you to also sign your deposition.
Exactly. And so I think you would have plenty of people that could testify as to what actually occurred in this particular instance. But I would probably and actually from a cost perspective, and I think this is what a lot of people lose sight on, and I'm actually working on a case right now where we are arguing over silliness, right? Like the value of a home. And in my opinion, we should be able to just stipulate to certain things, but the other side won't do it. And so now we're spending all this money on experts to have everybody come in and testify. Whereas from a cost perspective, maybe the attorney would just say, fine, it's already out there. We already know what it shows. We don't care because they were already separated. And so it's not a big deal or whatever their theory is going to be.
Well, that wouldn't be the right theory because they weren't, but yes.
But, maybe there's another theory, right? And so...
that was his best friend.
Yeah. Yeah. Besties. And so, those are things that you'd want to consider also if you're the husband's
She was going to fall over. He was holding her to keep her from falling over. He's a lifesaver.
That's what's going on.
And it's been twisted on social media.
And so there's other ways that we could prove it even if we couldn't get the video in, I think. And then again, going back to what I said earlier, once you start deep diving into discovery, I have a feeling, I don't know, but I have a feeling that perhaps this had been going on for a while and that's what all the discovery would potentially flesh out. So,
which we've already discussed.
Right. I won't go there anymore.
Perfect.
So how does it impact a divorce?
So first, the thing is the division,
Mhm.
right? If it's a fault-based ground, it's one of the grounds you can use. So in Texas, we use the just and right division. That's kind of the standard. Doesn't mean 50-50. It just means just and right. But you can request a disproportionate division based on one of the things would be false in the breakup of the marriage. And so if you can prove that he committed adultery and that's the reason that the marriage broke up, then you could be awarded potentially more of the property than he gets based on the fact that there was adultery. There's some other things here the court could take in consideration, right? I mean, is he spending money on her? Things of that nature, waste of assets, fraud. I don't know how much we want to dive into that because that's very lengthy.
Well, I mean, I think fraud is definitely relevant in this particular situation, potentially, right? And again, going back
It's
to,
definitely potentially relevant.
well, because what I was thinking, and why I backtracked, is because what if they were using company funds to fund this affair, right? Like they were doing it, when they were on business trips, etc. Then the community wouldn't necessarily have a claim for fraud.
The company would.
I mean, the company would, but not the community. And so it may not be something that we can pursue, right? But if in fact he was using his personal funds to go out and, go to hotels and trips and whining and dining and all this other stuff, then that's when fraud comes in. And so essentially, let's say he spent $50,000 on this affair. What you do is you reconstitute the estate, and all you're doing is you're adding that 50,000 back into the divorce case, and then you're just giving that phantom $50,000 to the husband, and then we're going to take the real $50,000 in cash, right? Again, with discovery, those are things that we're going to look into to try to prove. So, and that goes to property division.
Yep. I think that's pretty much it on the property division, right?
Mm-hmm. And so spousal support is the next thing. And I always kind of get confused on this issue. Like, fault grounds, does it affect spousal support?
So I don't think there's anything in the code that says that
Right.
it does, right? But I think just from a judge's, perspective, it will.
Right.
Right. And I think it goes back to, I mean, even if it's just an affair, right? So in order to get a fault ground divorce on adultery, you've got to prove that there was actually intercourse, right? But I think the judges take into account just the fact that there's an affair, right? And that is the cause of the breakup, and that's going to potentially cost the spouse additional funds, or it cost them money, or they can't afford their expenses, etc. And so I think they take that into account when they're awarding spousal support. But I don't think there's anything in the statute that says if you had an affair. Well,
Right.
I know there's not.
Right. And so, and one of the things that's kind of interesting about this case is it's our understanding that he did lose his position after all of this, hit social media. And so then, one of the factors that the court's going to look at when identifying spousal support is his ability to pay, right? And so I think he was earning something like $500,000 a year or something like that. And so if he goes from earning that to now, being unemployed, or earning $100,000 a year, then that's going to impact his ability to pay, which is going to directly impact the amount of spousal support that she's going to receive, which is kind of crappy. But
I think that rolls back into division, right? One of the grounds for disproportionate division is continuation benefits derived from continuation of the marriage, right? And so I think it would just all circle back up and say, okay, you can't pay her spousal, but I can give her ABC to assist her with her reasonable necessary living expenses.
Right.
So, or you can use X credit card that's in husband's name that he's going to have to pay for.
Right. And so then the next thing is going to be custody of the kiddos. Does the non-adulterous spouse automatically get the kiddos? The person who did not have the affair.
Yeah, I was breaking down your statement, non-adulterous spouse. I don't think so. I don't think it's an automatic thing. I think most judges have the perspective, you can be a shitty husband but still be a great father, right? I think where we see this play a lot into child custody issues is when their affair is impacting their relationship with the children.
Right.
Have we ever seen that before?
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, and that's kind of where we use it in custody disputes, right? So we have husband who is, away all the time because he's going to Coldplay concerts for business trips. And
And
so
instead of taking his daughter to a Taylor Swift concert, he went to Coldplay.
That's right. And so he's taking time away from the kiddos, and mom's at home, making sure that they're all taken care of. We have them where they're leaving late at nights, coming home early in the morning, and really just not prioritizing their children, right? And so in those cases, the affair and the adultery, it absolutely plays a big part in who's going to get custody. But let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that husband is doing it during work hours, like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. when he's generally at work, and the kiddos are at school and mom's at work, and he's at home at 5 and picking them up from school and taking them to baseball, and he's just a present father.
The kids were off at summer camp during Coldplay,
Right,
so he couldn't be there with them.
right, yeah. So
Probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, I don't think that it affects who has the exclusive right to designate the primary residence. I also don't necessarily think that it impacts his visitation, which is really, really tough. It, I always feel really bad, and typically it's my female clients, when the husband is having an affair, and they want to limit his access because they feel like they've been so wrong. And as a woman, I get it. Like that's tough to swallow. But as an attorney, it's just not something that judges are going to sympathize with.
It's definitely an emotional request,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Not a legal request. Another one we see a lot is, okay, fine, I don't want this woman around my kids.
Right, right. And so what we've seen with that is, I would say most judges will say, while the divorce is pending, mistress, what do you call a male, Mr.? The boyfriend, if the wife's having the affair?
Sancho?
The Sancho, the Sanch, the mistress of the Sanch are not allowed to be around. If
Mr.
I don't know, but they're
If you
not
know, drop a comment.
right. But they're not allowed to be around while the divorce is pending. But after the divorce is finished, a lot of times those injunctions are lifted, and they will eventually be around the kiddos, which is tough. Especially if you have older kiddos and they know why their family has been broken up. That's
Well,
tough.
and bringing them around. So we talked about, not having them around, not having an affair during separation,
Mhm.
right? For purposes of division and fault and all that stuff in the divorce, but
Mhm.
also having someone that you're seeing around the kids while a divorce is pending,
Mhm.
right? Is not good for the kids. And so we use it that way too, to show that you're not acting in their best interest. I mean, think about it from their perspective, right? Their parents are separating. They're going through all kinds of emotional stuff. And now you're going to introduce a third party that's taking the place of one of the parents when it's so fresh, right?
Mhm.
And so just doing that, it's not good for the kids, right? It adversely impacts their interest. And so we're able to use it that way to show, hey, I mean, not only is she an ass for having an affair with my husband, but also having her around has an adverse impact on my kids.
Right. Well, and I mean, not only from a legal perspective and just how it's going to affect conservatorship and visitation, but we've seen it a lot where, especially in older kids, where it destroys the relationship with the cheating spouse. And it is very, very hard as a parent to come back from that. And so, I think a lot of times parents are not thinking of global consequences, but it's not just going to affect your pocketbook and potentially your rights to see your kiddos, but your overall relationship with them also. And so, I would just say, if your kiddo is struggling because this has happened in your household, like, make sure that we get them in therapy and we're getting them, tools to be able to process all of it, because it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff that they have to deal with.
It's difficult to overcome their perception that their dad chose this woman over his family.
Yep.
Right? That's tough.
Yep.
So, next, can we sue them?
Wait, hold on. Child support. Does it impact child
No.
support?
That was dumb. I didn't even want to go over there.
I think it's
Dumb question.
I mean, it's on your outline.
Yeah, that's true. But I was like, that's stupid. So no, it doesn't affect child support. I guess we can go into intentional underemployment, but it's not intentional.
It's not
I
intentional.
mean, he got fired, but he intentionally committed an act that got him fired. But I don't think it would be intentional underemployment or unemployment. So
But
child
would it go to his ability to pay, even if it wasn't intentional? Would the court deviate from the statutory guidelines? I don't know. You thought this was dumb.
I wouldn't think so. It is
Is it dumb?
It's
Because
dumb. It's really dumb.
you're processing.
Because you're making up some crazy crap.
I'm not.
So why would they deviate? So it's got to be based on his income, and so now he's working at McDonald's because nobody else will hire him because he can't be trusted with female coworkers. So he's working at McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they're going to base his income on, right?
Mm-hmm.
The exceptions are if he's intentionally underemployed or unemployed,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or a deviation from guidelines, right? Which is generally based on the expenses of the children. But if he's working at McDonald's legitimately and that's all he's making, he can't afford a deviation from guidelines. So we go back to she's going to get more of the property.
Potentially. I mean, I just had this happen the other day in trial where husband or father rather was making easily $150,000 over the course of so many years, and he came in and he testified that he had gotten fired because he had taken his daughter to the job site a couple of times because he didn't have anybody to help him with the kiddo. And in that particular case, the court did find intentional underemployment or unemployment and made him pay max guideline support.
That's crazy.
I
Good thing I wasn't on the other side of the case.
I liked it a lot. I mean, it was good.
Lucky I wasn't the other attorney. How could it be intentional unemployment if you didn't intentionally quit your job?
I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
And I think it goes to credibility too. Maybe in that particular case, maybe Judge just didn't buy what he was selling because it wasn't very credible. So
maybe what they do is punt it. And they say, look, you have 6 months to find a job.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, basing it on this, we're going to punt this for 6 months. You have the ability to earn $150,000 a year. Get out and find your job.
Right.
Otherwise, at that point, maybe you're intentionally underemployed.
Right.
Maybe.
Okay.
That was dumb. I'm glad we missed that. All right. Can we sue her? Can anybody sue anybody?
I thought we don't really see a lot of this. One of the things that we talked about was intentional infliction of emotional distress. I don't
I've seen
think
a lot of that recently.
Yeah. I don't think that this would qualify as a separate tort claim. It has to be like an outrageous act. I think the intent is another big problem because he clearly did not intend that this was going to get out there.
He intended to have the affair.
He did.
Or to catch her from falling off the level.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think that would be a thing. The other one was public disclosure of private facts. Never even seen that. I don't know that's even a thing in Texas. Defamation, there was no false statement. False slide, it doesn't exist in Texas.
I'm glad we brought that up then.
Yeah. This is
you want to list everything else? Everything else.
The thing that you should have said we need to skip. But I think the best thing to do is, instead of trying to file or pursue any sort of separate tort claim, just use it in the divorce for the disproportionate share and move forward.
And you can't in Texas sue the mistress for interference with your marriage. You can't do that in Texas.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things you can't do in Texas. We're not going to go through the whole list.
Right.
Anything else on any of this?
I don't think so, Floyd. I don't think so.
I guess just a reminder, like if you're at a concert with somebody you shouldn't be, hide your face, stay away from kiss cams.
Or how about just don't do it? Maybe that is a thing.
Don't go to Coldplay concerts
with your mistress.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay, so keep it private.
Yeah.
Or not at all.
Or, maybe they should have just been cool. If they had just been cool, like happy little
That's
couple.
That's the funny thing about all of this.
Like, I think everybody would have been like, oh, and do-do-do, and it would have never, ever, ever came to light.
If they could have those 3 seconds back in their life.
Yeah, poor guys. So takeaways for listeners. Adultery still matters in Texas. Obviously, it's, there's consequences for your actions. I know a lot of times in this podcast, we say that, judges don't really seem to care that much about affairs when they're awarding a disproportionate share. I know what we've said that probably a ton of times. But there are times when they do. And I think in this particular case, given the broad scale of what happened on social media, given the impact that it's having on this woman and her children,
How she found out.
yes, and his loss of job, his loss of income, in a case like this, I think that the judges are going to care, and it's going to have a significant impact on her claims. So it does cost you money and credibility. Even when you show up to court, I think judges a lot of times are going to have a difficult time believing what you say, because if you're able to have this ongoing affair and keep it from, your soulmate and your spouse and the love of your life and your children, and kind of live this separate life, when you get on that stand to testify, I think a lot of judges are kind of looking at you like, I don't know that I can really believe much of what you're saying. So there's going to be consequences greater than, just the divorce, but how you're perceived by a judge
Do we
or
know?
a jury.
Do we know if the lady whose life was saved knew about the wife?
Yes. I mean, they work together. Yes.
But I thought she had recently been hired or something.
I don't know. I mean,
So
I
she
don't
did
I
that.
don't know if
She probably wasn't thinking about that when she was falling off, though.
So the video evidence can work, right? But you have to make sure that you get it admitted in the proper form, right? And I had a hearing a few weeks ago where the attorney for his life could not remember the proper predicate for authenticating a video, and he had a really good video, but because he couldn't get those elements in, the video never came in. And so just make sure as the attorney that you're prepared with those questions. So you're taking that extra step of doing the deposition. Don't just presume because 10 million people have seen it that it's automatically coming in, because it's not.
And from a client perspective, right? Don't just assume because you have something good that we can use it, right? I mean, we will try, right? But there's all kinds of objections and things that you have to go through to make something admissible, right? And I hear all the time, like, I've got this, and yeah, but I can't use it for ABC, right? A lot of times it's a recording or something, but yeah, just because you have it doesn't mean we can use it. And it's not any good if we can't use it.
Right. And then also, just make sure that if you find yourself in a situation like this and you see, you find videos, you find clips, you have this idea or this feeling that perhaps something's going on, talk to an attorney, right? Because a lot of times we can gather the evidence and the information that we need before everything comes to light. And it's a lot easier to do it that way as opposed to you going in and confronting your spouse, and then all of a sudden all of the messages and the videos and the recordings and everything disappears, and then we have a difficult time substantiating the adultery. So
I think that's it. Anything else on Coldplay?
I think that's it, bud. So as always, thank you guys for listening in. We hope that maybe you learned a little bit of something. Like and follow us on all social media platforms. We have TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, any platform that there is, we're on it. And, as we stated before, we're both board certified family law attorneys in the state of Texas. Please don't take this as legal advice. This is just our opinion about, certain things and that are going on with this whole incident. And if you need help in Midland, Odessa, Dallas, Louisville, Flower Mound, or Bedford,
Good work.
thank you. Then make sure that you reach out to us.